All right, this is a no-knead bread recipe, and this is a gluten-free no-knead bread recipe. So we have 2.5 cups of rice flour here, plus we've got a 1/4 cup of cornstarch, and we're gonna add a 1/4 cup of instant potato flakes. That just lightens the mixture a little bit. So basically a total of 3 cups flour if you're not doing gluten-free. It would just be a total of 3 cups flour. And then we need 1.5 to 2 teaspoons of salt. This is going to be kind of like sourdough bread, but not quite. We're going to be cooking it in a cast iron pan. But the key with this is you want to make it 12 to 18 hours ahead of time. And it doesn't take that long to make it, but after we mix these 4 simple ingredients, we're going to just leave it out on the counter for 12 to 18 hours. 1/2 teaspoon of yeast. And we blend this all together and then add 1.5 cups water. So flour, salt, yeast, and water. That was 1.5 cups water. It does need to be lukewarm water. Don't use hot water, it will not allow the yeast to activate, and don't use cold water. It will not allow the yeast to activate. It's got to be lukewarm so that it can start doing its thing. So all we need to do is stir this up, cover it with a towel, and let it rise, do its thing all night. Now, if you're using the gluten-free ingredients of rice flour, cornstarch, and instant potato flakes that I mentioned, you'll need to add about a 1/2 cup additional water to get more of a dough consistency otherwise it'll be too crumbly. But this has had that extra 1/2 cup of water added. Now we're just going to cover it with plastic wrap and leave it all night. With the plastic on, we'll leave it undisturbed for 12 to 18 hours, and then we'll get our Dutch oven heated to cook it. All right, we have waited for 12 to 18 hours for this to raise a little. It has some, not as much as I was expecting. Now it's time to put it on this parchment, and then we're going to transfer it into a cast iron pot that's already been preheating along with the dinner in the oven. Don't touch it, it's hot. You can see it's really hot. We're using the parchment so we don't burn ourselves, and it just keeps it ensured from sticking at all. With a little bit of flour handy on my hands and on the top of this and on the parchment, we're going to attempt to scoop this directly onto the parchment. Anytime you're dealing with rice flour, it does not congeal as well as the bleached flour does. But get it on the parchment so it can cook in a ball. This is going to have the shape somewhat of a sourdough ball loaf. It probably is not going to get as tall. But the shape of the cast iron pan is going to help it form, take the shape of the cast iron pan. All right. All right, so we're going to carefully transfer this into the pan. We'd like it to have a round edge, so I am pressing up against carefully. This is to cook with the lid on for the first half hour, so using hot pads, we're folding down our excess parchment here. So the lid can go on, and then the last half hour we'll remove, or the last 15-20 minutes we'll remove the lid. I'm also going to see if we can direct some of this dough over to the other side as well, because it wasn't quite even. And in it goes. This pot is already very hot. We put it in before turning on the oven. It warmed up slowly. Now it's thoroughly hot. Putting it in at 450 for about half an hour. All right, now we take the lid off and it's starting to cook beautifully. We're going to cook it for another half hour. No, 15 minutes. Half hour is probably way too long. 15 minutes to let the top get golden. Here it has browned up, and we are going to just transfer this right over to cool. It's still a little hot. And this is just the way we want it. Crispy on the outside and soft and chewy in the middle. Give this a try. So there you have it. No knead gluten-free bread.